Welcome to a series of videos called English for Emerson. On this channel, we learn some basic English reading and writing. You need something to write with, you need something to write on. Lately, we've been doing folk sayings in English. Put it up here, folk sayings. Why do I do this? Because I got to teach something, and it makes it a little more interesting maybe. And I think the folk sayings have a lot of wisdom in them, and you're going to hear them all the time. If you don't know what people are talking about with these folk sayings, it's hard to understand English. I like them, too. I like the folk sayings. You know, if you imagine the old folks, let's say, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, if you wanted to listen to music, what did you have to do? Well, you had to either buy an instrument and learn how to play, or you had to go someplace where people were playing music, church, or a concert, or a school, whatever. Maybe you had friends who played. That's the only time you got to hear music. Because you didn't have radio, you didn't have the phones, you didn't have computers, YouTube, TV, you didn't have records, you didn't have any of it. It was quiet. Well, around 100 years ago approximately, and especially around 75, 80 years ago, records became mainstream, mass-produced, where you could listen to music anytime you wanted. Also, radio became available. This all kind of happened at the same time, all these technologies. And it was a big deal because you could listen to shows, you could listen to music, and it was a new thing, and it was a big deal. If you had a favorite song, you didn't have to go find somebody to play it at a concert. No, you could sit down and listen to it anytime you wanted by having the record. A big record, about yay big, about the size of a dinner plate, had maybe 15 minutes of music on each side of it. So you have about around 30, maybe 40 minutes of music on a record. And if you had a band that you liked or whatever, or a group that you liked, you could enjoy it over and over and over again as many times as you wanted. But the records had one problem. They were fragile. They could break. They could get scratched. And if you got a broken record, the needle, as the record went around in circles, the needle that sat on the record and played the music as it went around, well, it would skip. And the record would not play through anymore. It would just come to a particular spot on the record, and it would play it over and over and over again. From the great Atlantic Ocean to, 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 from the great Atlantic Ocean to. Over and over again. People are like, oh, turn it. Push the needle forward. The record's broke. Oh my gosh, it was a hassle. And then that was no good anymore. You had to go get another one. You couldn't repair it. You could not repair it. Well, this phenomenon was something that happened in everybody's house because it's at one point everybody had a record player. It was a big deal to have a record player, and everybody had records, and everybody had at least one broken record. So everybody knew what you were talking about when you said you sound like a broken I got a couple of K's here, don't I? Broken record. Everybody knew what you were talking about if you said, you sound like a broken record, because everybody had broken records back then. It was annoying, real annoying to have a broken record. There's our folk saying for the day. You sound like a broken record. Now let's take a look at this. If you're still writing, I don't want to interrupt your progress now. I don't want to interrupt your progress. I wish that you could tell me, and I knew that when you were done writing your letters here, because then I'd know when I could start going off. You know, I just can't wait. I just can't wait to go off and go on one of my lectures. I'm just practically having to hold myself back. Check this out. I hope that you're done writing so you can listen. If you're not, you can just pause it. Look at this. Y-O-U is you. Now look at this. S-O-U-N-D. We have two O-U's in this sentence. This one says ooh. This one says ow. Isn't it interesting in English? The same combination of letters make two different sounds. Crazy, crazy English. That's why it's memorization. There's no logic to it. This is you. This is not sound. It's sound. It's all memorization. It makes absolutely no sense. Check out this one here. L-I-K-E. Is that likey? No, we know it's like. The E is silent. There's another vowel here in the word before it. This is like. This is pretty, this word actually makes sense. Broken. B-R-O-K-E-N. You just sound that out. Well, thank God. This is a hard C here. So this one actually makes sense too. Record. It's a hard C. There's no K there. That's a hard C. It's interesting that in this sentence, every letter stops at the bottom line. Not one single letter goes below the bottom line here. That's nice. You know, I hate that because I love to go out of the lines, but this is just one of those times. Listen, people. This is not a good thing to sound like a broken record. It's a bad thing. And it's kind of sad, actually. It's kind of sad. But in your life, you're going to meet people. When you talk with them, it's going to sound like you're talking. No, it's going to sound like you're listening to a broken record. They're going to keep saying the same things over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And you can't pass that point in the record. I don't know what else to say. They don't want to get to the end. Some people. They don't want to get to the end. Or they can't. It's one or the other. They either don't want to get to the end and reach the end of the conversation, or they can't. But they're going to stop at the same point in the conversation over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. You cannot get through to them. Like we had a lesson a while back was you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. I mean, it's kind of similar. Also, you know, there's no point in beating a dead horse. That's also kind of similar. It's kind of sad though. Most people want to compromise. They want to get along. They want to understand you. They really want they really want to get there. There's people who don't. They don't want to solve anything. I don't know what they want, but they don't want to solve problems. And they're gonna sound like this, like a broken record. And finally, you just have to shut it off. Finally, you got to shut it off, and it is not gonna stop. I don't know what else to say. This is not a compliment. If someone says you sound like a broken record, that's not a compliment. It's important in life. I feel like there's an airplane going by or something. We don't have an airport here. I wonder what that sound is. I hope it's not someone to get me. Hopefully they'll go by. Can you hear that? I don't know what's going on. Listen, it's important. What I'm trying to say is it's important to try with people. If you can, it's important to try to make it through problems and try to find a solution. Try to make it to the end. It's very, very, very annoying to keep repeating the same thing over and over and over and over again. I hope I don't do it too much. Maybe I do. That's terrible. If someone does this with you and you just feel like they're saying the same thing over and over and over again and you can't make it to the end and solve a problem, you use this. You say, you sound like a broken record, even though we don't have records anymore. Very few people have records and record players these days. People will understand it in English. It's part of our language now. You sound like a broken record. That's it. I'm done. English for Emerson. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.